Think of Cloudflare as this massive security guard for a huge chunk of the internet. It's out there protecting websites from all sorts of digital threats. But what if you're a security professional? What if your job is to actually test those very defenses to see how strong they are? So here's what we're going to cover today. First, we'll get a handle on what this Cloudflare Fortress is all about. Then we'll peek at the kinds of tools used for security testing. After that, and this is super important, we're going to draw a very clear ethical line that you just don't cross. Then we'll look at how the pros do it the right way and wrap up by talking about who this kind of knowledge is really for. All right, first things first, what is Cloudflare, really? The simplest way to think about it is as the web's frontline defense. It's a service that sits right between a website server and, well, the rest of the world, and its whole job is to filter out the bad guys and let the good guys in. And that, of course, leads to the big question for anyone in cybersecurity. Can this guard be bypassed? It's a provocative question for sure, but maybe the more important question is, how would you even begin to test that in a way that's both legal and ethical? You see, Cloudflare isn't just one big wall. Oh no, it's way more sophisticated than that. It's a fortress with layers upon layers of defense. It's got things like DDoS mitigation, which can soak up these giant waves of traffic designed to knock a site offline. It has smart bot management that's constantly trying to figure out if you're a human or a malicious script. It's this whole combination of defenses working together that makes it such a powerhouse. Okay, so if you've got this super complex fortress, how do the good guys, the security pros, actually test its strength? Well, that brings us to the tools of the trade, software that's built specifically for things like automation and security testing. So one name that pops up in these conversations is OpenBullet. It's a really powerful piece of software that's all about automating web requests. Now, in a legitimate testing scenario, its power is its speed. It can do thousands of repetitive tasks at a speed no human ever could, which is useful for simulating a ton of traffic to see how defenses hold up under pressure. So if you were to map out how a test like this works in theory, it would look something like this. You start with setting up your test. Then you'd use things like proxies to spread out your requests so they don't all look like they're coming from one place. The main part is automating all those requests, but then you hit the really tricky bit, figuring out how to handle challenges like CAPTCHAs, which are literally designed to stop automation. And finally, you'd have to check your work and validate if the test was even effective. Okay, and this is where we have to hit the brakes. Hard. Seriously, this is without a doubt the most important part of this whole explainer. We're moving from just talking about theory to talking about reality, and there is a very, very bright red line we need to draw right now. Let me make this absolutely 100% crystal clear. Using these tools or these techniques on any system you don't own or that you don't have explicit written permission to test is not testing. It's not some cool hacking. It is a crime. Full stop, end of story. And this right here, this quote, says it all. The only reason this kind of information exists in the public domain is to educate defenders, the people who build and protect systems, so they can make them stronger. It is not a playbook for attackers, and trust me, the legal consequences for misusing it are incredibly severe. It all boils down to one golden rule, the one thing every ethical security pro lives by. You only proceed with explicit, written permission from the person who owns the system. There are no gray areas here. No exceptions, period. Okay, so if that's the wrong way, what's the right way? How do the professionals actually test security? Well, they do it by using sanctioned professional frameworks that are specifically designed for legitimate security research. And this chart, it lays it out perfectly. You've got two completely different paths here. On one side, you have the risky, unauthorized path. It's high risk, uncontrolled, and can cause real damage. On the other side, you've got the professional white hat path. Here you're using industry standard tools like OWASP ZAP in a totally legal, controlled way, with the single goal of making things more secure. See, an ethical test is a real science. It's about using professional tools like Burp Suite or Selenium, tools that give you incredible insight into how a system is actually working. And, critically, it's always done in a controlled environment, like on a test server you own, so there's zero chance of causing real-world damage. The goal isn't just to get past the guard, it's to deeply understand how the defenses work so you can help make them even stronger. Which brings us to a really important final point. If this knowledge is so sensitive, who is it actually for? Why is it so important for them to get this? Look, this knowledge is meant for a very specific group of people, the folks on the front lines of our digital defense. We're talking about penetration testers who are under contract to find vulnerabilities. We're talking about cybersecurity students and researchers learning the ropes, ethical hackers working within a strict, authorized scope, and of course, the developers who are actually building the apps we all use every day. And really, that's the whole point, isn't it? To be a good defender, you have to understand how an attacker thinks. The entire purpose of this knowledge is never ever to break things. It's to learn how to build stronger, tougher, more resilient defenses for all of us. So, I'll leave you with this question. Now that you have a better understanding of the threats and, just as importantly, the massive ethical responsibilities that come with this knowledge, what's your role going to be? How will you help build a safer, more secure web for everyone?